There's a fierce debate in ARC Raiders right now. Should you use the muzzle brake attachment or the compensator? I tested both attachments very carefully to give everybody an answer that will feel right to them. Now, before we can continue, let's talk about what attachment actually does. I think this is really important to get this straight. The muzzle brake is easiest to explain. It will reduce the way your weapon kicks up and to the left and right whilst you're firing. If you have ever struggled controlling recoil in games, this is a great attachment to help you out. And even if you're able to control vertical recoil easily, ARC Raiders weapons do have a decent amount of horizontal recoil, which is really quite hard to control unless you learn the recoil patterns of each weapon. So any attachments that can minimize horizontal recoil are always good to have. So yes, the muzzle brake can really help mitigate a lot of recoil. That's really going to work well on weapons like the Bobcat, Stitcher, and Arpeggio. And then we have the compensator. The compensator helps to reduce dispersion. Specifically, it will do two things. It will reduce the per shot dispersion and reduce max shot dispersion. So how does this work exactly? Let's say when you fire, you're 100% accurate for that first shot. Your bullet will go exactly where you aim. But as you continue to fire, the dispersion grows with each and every shot. So the per shot dispersion effect from the compensator means with each shot, the dispersion is growing less than it would otherwise. And then each weapon also has a max dispersion. Eventually, even if you fire 100 bullets in a row, you'll reach a maximum hard-coded limit for the dispersion. This is the total spread that one bullet could go, and each weapon has a hard-coded max dispersion limit, and you can't go any higher than that. And the compensator will reduce this max dispersion size. What this means is the compensator is basically going to help with any weapon that have sustained fire, especially for a longer time. Well, isn't that basically every weapon then? Yeah, pretty much. The Bobcat, Stitcher, Arpeggio, Torrente, Tempest, Renegade, Anvil, Beretta, they all have improved accuracy with a compensator. In fact, the Anvil and Renegade are great examples. Fire slowly with these weapons and you'll retain 100% accuracy anywhere, but fire fast and that accuracy degrades quickly because of dispersion. By using a compensator, you're able to fire faster whilst maintaining accuracy. This is a game changer for winning fights. I think for most people, all of this stuff's a no-brainer. But what about putting a compensator on something like an SMG or assault rifle? A lot of people argue a muzzle brake would be better. The Stitcher has a lot of recoil, but actually it also has a lot of dispersion. So if we look at the real results, what truly would be a better attachment on an SMG? Well, if we take a look at the recoil combatants, we can get a good idea. I've got a fully built out Stitcher 4, and this is what it looks like with a Compensator 3, and this is what it looks like with a Muzzle Brake 3. There's a clear difference here. One has far less vertical recoil, whilst the other has far less dispersion. So, which is better? Pay close attention to the shots at the top of the muzzle brake's recoil. Once the max dispersion is reached, the inaccuracy really starts to become clear. With the compensator, whilst there is more recoil, it is predictable. It simply goes straight up, so it can be controlled just by pulling your aim down. But with the muzzle brake, the aim at the end becomes unpredictable and random. Each shot near the end of a magazine has a large dispersion, and it's something that cannot be controlled by the player in any way. So here's the answer. The muzzle brake helps to reduce something that you as a player can already control. And the compensator helps to reduce something that you cannot control. You have no control over the randomness of the dispersion. So unless you really struggle with controlling vertical recoil in games, a compensator will always be better on pretty much every weapon in the game. Now to really bring this point home, I'm going to do a live test here. We've got two Stitcher builds. They're almost identical. The only difference, one has a compensator 2, the other has a muzzle brake 2. I'm going to stand 15 meters away from this target, and I'm going to try and physically control the recoil myself. I'll first test it with the muzzle brake 2, and then we'll test it with the compensator 2, and we'll see which recoil results are better. The goal, try and keep my bullets within this green circle here. So we're going to start here with the muzzle brake 2. And this is the result of the Muzzle Brake 2. Whilst we did a good job to control the recoil for the most part, some of the bullets did end up going outside of the green circle. And I think that's mostly because as I continued to fire, the dispersion really started to grow quite large, which is something I have no control over. Next, we're going to test the Compensator 2 build here. Once again, we're at 15 meters.
There.
And this time you can see the results. Even though there was more recoil and it was a little bit harder to control, we only got 2 bullets going outside of the circle. So overall the results were a lot better. Most of the bullets were on target, at least a little bit more than the Muzzle Brake build. The truth is, the Muzzle Brake can be learned. You can control the recoil. The Compensator solves something that you just have no control over. Now, this doesn't mean this is the right answer for you. My suggestion, come down here into the practice range and test it for yourself. For me, I feel confident enough to control the recoil. For you, that might be a different story. If you struggle with recoil control, then you might just find the Muzzle Brake better, especially on full auto weapons. For me, somebody that's played shooter games for quite a long time, I don't need the recoil benefits from the Muzzle Brake, so I'm very happy to take the Compensator. Now, there's another question to answer here. What about Compensator 2 versus Compensator 3? Is it worth taking the increased durability burn rate to get that boosted dispersion reduction? Well, once again, I'm going to do a live test and show you the results. Now, I've done extensive testing on all of the different weapons with the Compensator 2 versus the Compensator 3, and I'll talk about the different weapons in a second. But first, let's do it with the Stitcher. So this is the Compensator 2. I'm not going to control the recoil so we can see the dispersion difference a little bit more clearly here. And now this is the Compensator 3. Let's have a look at the results here. Now, if I told you that these two recoil patterns had different attachments, you might not even believe me. The Compensator 3 on the right is almost identical to the Compensator 2. My reasoning for this is, I believe that the Compensator 2 already has enough of an anti-dispersion effect that it's basically negated entirely, and using a Compensator 3 is just overkill. It's not necessary because the dispersion is already reduced enough. We're going to see the most amount of dispersion at the end of the recoil, right at the last few bullets where it really is max dispersion. But even here, the difference is almost not even noticeable whatsoever. Honestly, forget about the durability burn rate. Think about the resources, because the Compensator 3 is way overkill and doesn't even provide any kind of benefit over the Compensator 2. And we're already at a pretty decent distance, and we're firing completely without even letting go of the trigger, which is the most, like, we're really putting the Stitcher through the runner here to test it. And funnily enough, I did test that with a bunch of other weapons, and I saw similar results. The Compensator 3 just didn't really give you that much benefit over the Compensator 2. And I even tested it with the Torrente. That would make the most sense to have a good result, right? The Torrente dispersion's crazy. Surely the Compensator 3 is better. Look at the results here. I was honestly quite surprised about this one. Even whilst editing this video, I thought, hang on, let me go back and try this with the Torrente. You can see here the dispersion results of the Compensator 2 versus the Compensator 3 are hardly even noticeable, which is kind of ridiculous. It's not like, honestly, the durability burn rate isn't that much of a big deal unless you're fighting like the Matriarch or the Queen or using an epic tier weapon. But the Compensator 3's bonus dispersion reduction is almost non-existent, which is really strange. Honestly, if you want to spend mod components to build out a good build, instead of focusing on a level 3 compensator or muzzle brake, look at reducing the horizontal recoil or the recoil dispersion recovery. In the case of the Renegade, look at what happens if you get a compensator 2 with a padded stock on it and fire at max fire rate. Looks a lot better than the compensator 3 without a padded stock. So, in summary, I would always put the compensator over the muzzle brake. It's valuable more to me as a player that can control recoil. If you struggle with recoil, then they're pretty equal in their benefits. I wouldn't consider a compensator 3. It's kind of a waste of resources. Instead, I'd consider putting that into other attachments. And I would always choose an angled grip over a vertical grip because vertical recoil is really easy to control. Horizontal, not so much. Now, to really bring home just how much attachments can matter, I've got one final fun experiment. I'm going to use this Stitcher 4 with a compensator 3, a horizontal grip, and a padded stock, which is going to have the maximum amount of recoil reduction and dispersion reduction. And then I can compare that with a Stitcher with no attachment, and we'll see what the recoil looks like. Let's first start with the no attachment Stitcher. We should do it from 10 meters, otherwise the recoil will probably go through into the roof.
Look there.
Here we go. There's a lot of dispersion coming in at the end there. Right, now let's see what this build looks like with all of these shiny attachments on. And no, I'm not pressing anything. My mouse is literally off the ground. Take a look at the difference. That is what you call the easiest recoil to control ever. And this is a complete mess. Yes, attachments make a big difference. And honestly, even an attachment like this, which has 30% reduced ADS speed, is worth considering. The benefit it gets as these attachments start to stack up is quite nice. And honestly, if you're running an SMG anyway, what you can do is just shoot whilst you're ADSing, right? Like that. And you're not going to have much difficulty. Let's try and control the recoil of this build. And then try to control the recoil of this build. Attachments matter in Arc Raiders, and the one you choose could potentially mean the player you're shooting is going to die or they're going to kill you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the comments. Cheerio.